This is On Assignment.
炒了很大的 VOA News
VOA News.
Hi, I'm Alex Villarreal, here with my co-host Imran Siddiqui, and this is On Assignment. In 1956, in the U.S. state of Georgia, the Buford Dam was completed on the Chattahoochee River, creating a reservoir known as Lake Lanier. The lake was originally designed for flood control, navigation, and hydropower, and eventually became the Atlanta area's main source for drinking water.
When Lake Lanier was made, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was supposed to destroy all the buildings that the water would soon cover. But I talked with Abdul Aziz Khan of VOA's Urdu TV, who says they didn't quite do that. Let's roll that tape.
When a dam was built over the Chattahoochee River in 1950s, 700 families left their homes, making way for 38,000 acres of water. 60 years later, this lake is now known for what people do on the water, but many still want to know what lurks below. After a couple of droughts, when water levels dropped, remains of some underwater structures emerged. The story of a submerged underwater town made the newspapers, and the myth of an underwater town under the surface of Lake Lanier was born. On April 7, 2012, a new expedition was launched, and a search team started scanning the surface of the lake with sonar. I decided to join the dive team myself. Lake Lanier was basically shown to me as one of the places where there could be ruins of a historical town that was flooded in 1950s.
And you guys dove in those waters and you found one of the homes in that town.
At that time, we did not know what it was. We didn't know whether it was a church. We didn't know whether it was a storage facility or a home. The visibility was so bad that we could not see more than 5 feet away. One thing that I remember is that I was counting as I was descending. I was counting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. And I reached all the way up to 50,000 and there was nothing. So as I was looking at my depth gauge, I remember hitting something, and that turned out to be the chimney of a Victorian style house. Normally we would not enter a structure like this because the roof can always collapse on you. But this roof had already collapsed. So we swam right into the rooms in search of furniture or any abandoned belongings. We desperately looked for a nameplate or something left behind that would give away the identity of the structure. But that material had already been removed, and there was nothing that the owners of the house had left behind. Many around Lake Lanier had fashioned an image of a small bustling town, sitting like some miniature Atlantis on the lake bed. But the 56,000 acres bought by the government were mostly rural areas. The community that was evacuated was a sprawling rural community, with farmhouses and farms without electricity or indoor plumbing, surrounded by vast tracts of wood.
What motivates you to do these kind of stories? You know, your stories talk about discovering stuff, you know, going out there, diving in waters. What pushes you?
See, the way I see it, every time you have the camera, you have the eyes of a million people in your hands, you know. And I want to do justice to that power. I want to do justice to that moment. And that is, I think, the driving force behind my stories. That, you know, what can I show them that they would say that, okay, it was a pleasure to hand over our eyes and our ears to you, and we would like to do that again.
And what about the fact that you know, you're from Pakistan, and critics have been saying that there's a lot of anti-American sentiment in Pakistan, but here you work with Americans. How's your experience with regards to that?
I think America is a very culturally diverse society, so being a Pakistani in America does not carry the same surprise value. So personally, I have never encountered any prejudice or racism. In fact, people are extremely enthusiastic to share their stories with me. People are extremely enthusiastic to share their past and their history. So my personal experience has been positive.
And what about your audience in Pakistan? When they see you doing these kind of things, you know, how's their reaction?
Of all these years, I have not heard a single comment from Pakistan which showed that there was people did not like the stories because they were on Americans. We did stories on Nazi U-boats and the Second World War, and our Pakistani audience was fascinated by it because the way they see it, there really is no such thing as American history or Pakistani history. History is history, and it exists independently of national perceptions and cultural perceptions, and that's how they take it.
That was Abdul Aziz Khan with Urdu TV. Alex, I think I'm going to take up diving, but the issue is that I don't know how to swim.
Well, you'll probably have to work on that part first before you dive. We're going to take a quick break now. Coming up, a VOA reporter just back from the Gulf of Mexico tells us how Louisiana is recovering from the 2010 oil spill. You're watching On Assignment.